Hi guys, it's me, Heather. Welcome to Dark Whispers. Today we're going to be talking about the story of Sylvia Likens. Okay, so let's just jump right into it. On October 26, 1965, the police entered the home of Gertrude, and I'm going to mess up her last name, Benisweski, to find the body of Sylvia Likens. Her body was covered in wounds. She was emaciated and it was on top of a soiled mattress. Gertrude, who was her guardian or caregiver, had told the police that she had returned home that way because she had ran off with some boys in the neighborhood to have sexual relations. Police realized that Sylvia had been dead for more than a few hours, and upon questioning, Gertrude told them the reason why it took her so long to call the police was because she was so busy giving first aid and tending to Sylvia's wounds. So of course the police were baffled and they had so many questions. They interviewed everybody in the house. Before leaving, a little girl came up to them. Her name was Jenny Likens. It was Sylvia's sister. Jenny came up to the police and said, "If you get me out of here, I will tell you everything." Okay, so heads up, this is where it gets really graphic, but an autopsy was done on Sylvia's body and it was discovered that there was over 150 wounds on her body. They were all at various stages. Some were healing, some were new, and some were old. She had burns, broken bones, she had severe muscle damage, and across her abdomen was the words written, "I am a prostitute and proud of it." Her fingernails were also bent backwards. Her lips were so severely bitten that they were hanging in pieces off of her mouth. So they were severed pretty badly. Her lower region was also so swollen that it was swollen shut. This was all an indication that she had been tortured all up until her death. Okay, so who is Sylvia and how did this happen to her and how did she get in this situation? Why did this happen to her? Sylvia was born January 4th, 1949, and she had 4 siblings who were sets of twins. So she was the only one who was not a twin. She was really close with her sister, Jenny. Jenny had polio, and she also had a metal brace on her leg and walked with a limp. Her parents, Elizabeth and Lester Likens, they worked at carnivals. They worked at carnival stands, so they were selling like soda, beer, candy, and snacks. So they were constantly traveling. They did take the girls with them, but they preferred leaving them with relatives. So they preferred leaving Jenny and Sylvia with relatives because they thought it would be a little bit safer, and also they wouldn't be missing out on school. Jenny and Sylvia went to Arsenal Technical High School, and that is where they met Stephanie and Paula. While I was reading this, my understanding is that they were friendly with them, but they weren't like super close. So they would like hang out after school, but they didn't know them really well. So they were friendly with them. So Lester thinks it's a good idea that Sylvia and Jenny stay with Gertrude. Gertrude is Paula and Stephanie's mother while they are traveling and working at carnivals. And his arrangement with her was that he would pay her $20 a week while the girls are staying with him. I'm gonna kind of give like my thoughts and stuff at the very end because there's a lot of things where I'm like, this doesn't seem like a good idea. Like, you don't know her very well. But anyway, let's dig into Gertrude and a little bit about her background. Okay, so Gertrude, let's dig into Gertrude a little bit. So Gertrude has 7 kids, and I'm gonna have to look at my little notes here because Gertrude has 7 kids. Paula, who's 17, and Stephanie, who's 15. So remember, those are the 2 girls that go to the high school with Sylvia and Jenny. There's John, who is 12, Marie, who's 11, Shirley, who's 10, James, who's 8, and Dennis, who is 1 year old. Dennis, the 1-year-old, was fathered by a 20-year-old. So Gertrude had a relationship at one point with a 20-year-old. Gertrude at this time is 37 years old. Gertrude would be described as a chain smoker, underweight. She was under 100 pounds for a 37-year-old. She also had very bad asthma, and she was also clinically depressed as well. Gertrude did not have a stable income. She did get a little bit of like child support, I believe, but it was very inconsistent amounts of money, and it was very inconsistent. For income, Gertrude did a lot of like odd jobs, I guess, in the neighborhood. She did sewing, cleaning neighbors' houses, ironing neighbors' clothes, and she did those things to make money to take care of her family. Okay, so back to where Lester makes an arrangement with Gertrude for the girls to stay with her while they're traveling around, working. So within about 2 weeks of this arrangement, the payments that they had agreed upon were not arriving on the arranged dates. So this frustrated Gertrude, and she started spanking the girls or like beating them out of frustration whenever this would happen. And she would beat them with a 25 inch. She would beat them with a 1/4 inch thick paddle, police paddle. She even told the girls, "Well, I took care of you two bitches for nothing." Soon the abuse started being more focused on Sylvia rather than on Jenny. While I was reading this, the reasons for Gertrude focusing more on Sylvia was because she was jealous of her looks, her youthfulness, and how she was really respected and liked by everybody in the community and church. But to me, I don't know, that just seemed a little like not enough to torture or murder somebody. But then again, people do all these things for less, right? For less reason. There was also another time that the family was eating, and Gertrude and Randy, a neighborhood kid, had beaten and also force-fed Sylvia hot dogs and other spices until she threw up. But you're probably wondering, like, who is this Randy kid and how did he get in the picture? From what it sounds like, reading everything that I had read about this, it sounds like there was always kids in the house, like coming in and out, like playing with the other kids, or Gertrude's kids. But it sounds like her house was always busy with like neighborhood kids being over, hanging out there. Okay, so the abuse is like escalating and it's more focused on Sylvia. So Sylvia wants to retaliate, and how she decided to retaliate was by spreading a rumor at the high school. She had spread a rumor about Paula and Stephanie being prostitutes, and that gets back to Paula and Stephanie. So this gets back to Gertrude, and Stephanie and Paula, and even Stephanie's boyfriend Coy Hubbard, get in on beating Sylvia. I guess at this time, Coy had did a lot of the beating. He was banging her head against the wall, slapping her, punching her, yelling at her, basically beat her because he was upset that she had spread this rumor about Stephanie, who is his girlfriend. So Coy started inviting other kids in the neighborhood to come and beat up Sylvia, torture her, and this was something that they would go and do for like fun. Gertrude was always present when this happened and was even there encouraging and participating in all of these events, all these abuse events. For entertainment and to humiliate Sylvia, she also forced Sylvia to undress in front of the family and stick a Coke bottle up her downstairs region in front of everybody. And that was to embarrass and humiliate Sylvia. So Sylvia needed a gym suit for a gym class, and Gertrude refused to purchase one for her. So Sylvia stole one, and she got caught and got in trouble for it at school. Gertrude, because of this, told her that she was forbidden to go to school and also beat her because of all of this. So that year during the summer, Lester and Elizabeth, Sylvia and Jenny's parents, would come and visit them while they had time, if they had time to or had breaks to. They would come and visit the girls. And during this time, Gertrude would always be around whenever they were visiting to make sure they didn't say or do anything to indicate that any abuse was going on. But Lester also said that he never ever noticed any distress, any wounds, or any sign of abuse whenever he was visiting the girls. But again, Gertrude was always around, and there was a time that when Elizabeth and Lester had left, Gertrude said to the girls, "What are you gonna do now that they're gone?" So Jenny and Sylvia came across a lot of adults while this was going on, even their older siblings, Diana. They ran into Diana and even told her about the situation. And Diana even tried to go to the house, to Gertrude's house, to visit the girls and see what was going on. But Gertrude told her she didn't have permission to be there and she needed to leave, otherwise she was gonna call the police. So there are parts where, you know, like they came across all these adults and you think, oh my God, finally, you know, maybe they're gonna get some kind of help, but no, they don't. So it always gets thrown under the rug or something. So the high school nurse actually came to Gertrude's house to visit the girls because there was an anonymous call that was placed at the high school stating that there was a girl with open sores and wounds at school, and basically they were concerned and worried. So the school nurse goes there. Gertrude tells the nurse that Sylvia looks like this because she keeps on running away and she has really poor hygiene and refuses to like shower and take care of herself. So this is the excuse and the reason that she gives the nurse, and the nurse is just like, okay, just leaves, just thinking it's fine. The neighbors next door to them were aware of the abuse. They had witnessed Paula beating Sylvia and Sylvia having 2 black eyes. They even went to Gertrude's house and were inside and witnessed Sylvia being in a zombie-like state. And again, nothing was done. They decided not to call the authorities and it didn't raise any red flags for them. They didn't care enough to do anything about it, basically. Because of the physical abuse that Sylvia was receiving from Gertrude and her family, she started to urinate uncontrollably, like she couldn't control her bladder. So as a punishment, Gertrude decided to tie her up and have her basically down in the basement area as punishment. She would even tie her up to the banister at times, and she was at this time starving her basically and not giving her any food or water. This is where neighborhood kids start coming more into the picture, and they are paying 5 cents to come and torture and mutilate and basically abuse Sylvia. So neighborhood kids are coming into the picture to abuse Sylvia while she's down in the basement. Again, Gertrude was always present when this was going on and again was participating and encouraging these behaviors. There was an occasion when Gertrude decided to burn and mutilate Sylvia with the words, I am a slut and proud, I am a prostitute and proud of it, on her abdomen. And her reason for doing this was because she said, quote, you branded my daughters and now I'm going to brand you. And I'm assuming that was because she was referring to the rumors that were allegedly placed at school from Sylvia. So Gertrude is burning these words into Sylvia's abdomen, and in the middle of doing this, she stops and instructs one of the neighborhood kids to finish it while she goes to the store with her youngest daughter. There was even an occasion when John also rubbed a soiled diaper from his baby brother into Sylvia's mouth and face and gave her a cup of water, saying that's all you're gonna get for the day. Okay, so on October 25th, Sylvia attempts to escape the basement because she overhears Gertrude talking about blindfolding Sylvia and leaving her in the forest to just die. So she tries to escape, but she is unable to escape because of her broken bones and her muscle damage and all the wounds on her, that she fails to escape. So at this time, she gets caught by Gertrude, and Gertrude and Coy, Stephanie's boyfriend, beat Sylvia with a rod until she was unconscious, and then they dragged her back to the basement and tied her up. So this is when Sylvia unfortunately passes away on October 26th. In the basement, she had used the bathroom and refused to eat because she was so delirious and weak. John attempted to wash her by spraying her down with a hose and laughing. Gertrude also stomped on her head as Sylvia tried to escape one more time. In attempts to wake Sylvia up because she was basically dead, Gertrude, believing that she was faking it, was beating her in the head with a Bible saying, "You're faking, you're faking." Stephanie and Richard bathed her and clothed her, put her in new clothes, and decided to call the police. And that's when the family and Gertrude told the police that she was in that condition because she ran off with boys from the neighborhood to have sexual relations and had returned in that condition. Gertrude, John, Paula, Stephanie, Richard, and Coy were all arrested under the suspicion of murder. The neighborhood kids that were also participating in the torture of Sylvia were also arrested, and they were all arrested under causing injury to a person. So the trial lasted 17 days. All the testimonies that were given painted Gertrude and Paula as the main participants in the murder of Sylvia. In the end, they found Gertrude being guilty of first-degree murder, Paula being guilty of murder in the second degree, and John, Randy, and Coy were all found guilty of manslaughter. Gertrude and Paula were sentenced to life in prison. So John, Randy, and Coy, they were all underage, so they were sent to Indiana's reformatory. So it's basically a reform school in a prison setting, and they were set to be there for 2 to 20 years. I don't think that's fair, but... Okay, so this is where I'm going to share my thoughts, and also where it kind of gets a little unfair, but... So Gertrude and Paula were retried in 1971. Paula's sentence was reduced to 22 years, and Paula's sentence was reduced to 22 years, but was released a year later in 1972. Gertrude was again retried. She was retried, but she was again sentenced to life in prison. But she was released from prison in 1985 because of good conduct. So it was said, and I'm gonna link the video or play the video. I'm not sure which one I'm gonna do. Maybe I'll do both, I don't know. But it was said that the reason why she was released early on good conduct, the Indiana women's prison that she was at had the correctional officers were accused of raping women there. And there was actually women who ended up in a women's prison pregnant, and Gertrude had testified in court on their behalf of the correctional officers that she never witnessed any abuse, and to help, you know, further encourage that there was not any rape going on in the prison. 5 years after Gertrude was released, she ended up dying, I believe from lung cancer or something. I don't know. I know she was a heavy smoker, but she ended up dying 5 years after being released. Okay, so my thoughts, I feel like they were all fucking let off hella easy. I don't even know how freaking Paula got out in 1972. The justice system did not serve any freaking justice. But apparently this really kind of opened the eyes of like child protection services and really just bringing more awareness to protecting children. I'm kind of all over the place, but I also feel like it's the parents' fault a little bit. Like, why would you leave your children with a complete stranger? As I was reading, it was also said that Lester knew that Gertrude and the family was really poor, and he never thought to check the condition of the house before leaving his children with her. So I kind of feel like I also kind of blame the parents, like that was your responsibility. Why did you just leave them with a stranger, a complete stranger? Like, why not continue having them with relatives? And also, but I kind of get it, like, it was also said that between 1949 and 1965, the family had moved around 19 times. There was 19 different addresses for the family. So they were just, in general, a really unstable family. And I guess also Lester and Elizabeth's relationship wasn't really that great. So it was just sounded like it was always like really chaotic for the family anyway. But maybe he wanted to have a more stable home for them and thought this was better. I don't know. But poor Sylvia, she really just had an awful, awful death. And I don't feel like how sick do you have to be to murder a child like that and to not have any real, I'm not saying that there has to be a reason, right? But like, what was the reason? For what? Why did you do this? For what? And when I was a kid, I never thought it was fun to go and torture anyone or anything. I'm not sick or twisted, I get it, but it's like, I would never pay, as a kid, I would never think it would be fun to, let's go pay 5 cents and go torture this neighborhood kid. Like, we were out riding our bikes and playing outside and stuff. I don't know, that's just weird to me. I don't get that either. Like, those neighborhood kids got let off way too freaking easy. Everybody involved got let off way too easy. Everybody, including the parents. Just don't think that at all. I don't think justice was served for her, and I feel so awful for her. Sylvia's story is a reminder of the darkness that can exist behind closed doors and how we need to stand up for everybody or other people who cannot protect themselves or who need to be stood up for. So that's my closing thoughts with that. Anyway, okay, I hope you guys liked it. I'm like fucking sweating in here. Again, my lashes are lashing. What do you guys think? Okay, anyway, yeah, I hope you guys liked this video. I'm like really hot right now. And thanks for watching. Okay, bye. Okay, go like and subscribe. Or don't.